We're back again with Over 55 and Alive, and on the radio we have with us Dr. Jeff Schmid. Do you go by Jeffrey or Jeff?
Jeff is fine, thank
Jeff,
you.
okay. Dr. Jeff Schmid, he actually has one of the most interesting jobs, I think, in the entire world. He does studies on the Kemp's Ridley sea turtle. Jeff, you're on the radio with Bill Arndt and...
Bill Pembleton. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Bill.
Bill and Bill.
Yeah, keeps it easy for you.
So, all of us down here in Naples are so aware of the sea turtles, and I love them. I think they're fantastic. Could you kind of fill us in on what you do and how the Conservancy works with sea turtles and how we help keep them from being extinction?
Sure. Well, that's a great point you brought up about everyone being cognizant of sea turtles. And when everybody thinks of sea turtles, they're usually referring to the loggerhead turtles that will begin nesting on our beaches here in the next couple of months. Those are the most readily observable. You can come out the next morning, see their tracks and the big pits that they've done.
They're the big turtles, correct?
Yep, okay. To bury their eggs. But that's just one of a few species of sea turtles that occur in our waters. We also have the Kemp's Ridley sea turtle, the green sea turtle, and hawksbill sea turtles as well. And these latter species are usually immature turtles that are in our bays and estuaries feeding and growing up to be one day mature turtles that will reproduce and lay their nests. So Southwest Florida is very important for a number of different sea turtle species. And the Conservancy has one of the longest-running programs for monitoring loggerhead nesting on Key Waden Island. I think we're looking at 30-some-odd years.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah, and that's my colleague Dave Addison manages that program. But the work I do here at the Conservancy is a little different. I focused on the Kemp's Ridley sea turtle, which is one of the most endangered of the sea turtle species, but also happens to be one of the most numerous in our coastal waters.
How interesting.
And these are, cryptic animals. You have to go out in a boat with a large net, and when the turtle comes up to the surface to breathe, because they're air breathers, we put the net out and try to circle up the animal, hope it hits the net. We bring it back in the boat, and then we begin collecting a host of scientific data on each animal. It's a rather labor-intensive process with fairly limited returns, but each animal we get, we mine for as much data as possible.
That's so interesting. Can I ask you a question? The Kemp's Ridley, weren't they almost extinct totally not too long ago?
That's correct. There's an old historical film that was shot in 1947, but it wasn't discovered until 1966. Their primary nesting beach is if you go across the Gulf over and hit the Mexican Gulf Coast, straight west across the Gulf. That's where the Kemp's Ridley's primary nesting beach is. And this film, shot in 47, showed the beach just covered with nesting turtles. They estimated about 40,000 nested in a single day. By the time that film was discovered and they started monitoring that beach, there were only several thousand nests a year, and it reached a low of 700 nests for the entire year of 1984.
Oh, my.
And I began working with Kemp's Ridleys in 1986, and it looked like we were going to see a sea turtle species headed to extinction. But I'm happy to report that the conservation efforts that were implemented soon after the precipitous decline was observed, we brought them back from the brink of extinction. Now there's around upwards to 20,000 nests a year.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Where's their primary nesting grounds?
It's a very rural and isolated stretch of beach on the Mexican Gulf Coast. It's halfway between Brownsville, Texas, and Veracruz, Mexico. It's called Rancho Nuevo. And as the name implies, it's primarily cattle ranching that's done inland. And there's not much coastal development, which actually bodes well for the nesting beach.
You're not going to believe this, but I've been there several times.
No kidding. What takes you there?
Well, I used to have friends in Brownsville that we actually stayed at South Padre Island.
Yep.
Many, many times. Mm-hmm. And one of the ways that you get to South Padre Island, and one of the ways you get off South Padre Island, is you can pass by that Nuevo beach. And it's when people think of beaches here, they think of beautiful white sand and expanses. Down there, it's a little different, though. There's a lot of plant life. There's a lot of grass that grows along with the sand, and the beaches are huge. They stretch for miles. It's just an amazing area. So I'm sorry, I apologize, didn't mean, but I just wanted to add that.
No problem.
I have a question for you. Do you work on this coast or the other coast also, just on the West Coast?
Yeah, my I guess I'm looking at 29 years now of researching this species, and I've worked on the west coast of Florida, from the Cedar Keys down to the 10,000 Islands.
Okay.
But in 2000, I was fortunate to go over to the primary nesting beach there in Rancho Nuevo and spent a month.
My sister lives on the east coast of Florida, and I don't know if this is the proper word, she actually sponsored a turtle's nest. I know she made a donation or whatever, but she had actually a little turtle's nest and her name on it. Do we do something like that similar to on this coast here, or no?
Well, we've been talking about doing, starting up a program like that, modeled after some of the other programs over on the East Coast. What we do have is one of the research activities that we're doing on both our loggerheads and Kemp's Ridleys is satellite tracking. We put a transmitter on the back of the turtle, and whenever the turtle comes to the surface to breathe, the antenna pops out, shoots a signal up to the orbiting satellites, and the satellites, through modern technology and wonderment, give us a location estimate. And then over time, you can see the movement patterns of these animals. And there are a few different ways. We have private donors that sponsor satellite tag with their donation, but there's also a website called seaturtle.org that has satellite tracking. There's a link in the lower right-hand corner, Track a Turtle. You click on that, and there's a whole host of projects. But you can search for the Keewaydin Project and also the 10,000 Island Project to see the turtles that we may be tracking. And there is the ability to adopt a turtle, if you will, through that avenue as well.
Oh, cool. We're going to be back in a minute with more. We're up against a hard break. Dr. Schmid, could we come back and talk to you just a few more minutes?
You bet.
This is Over 55 and Live. We're talking with Dr. Jeff Schmid from the Conservancy of Southwest Florida. He has a program that has actually brought the Kemp sea turtle back from extinction. We'll talk to him a little more about his programs in a minute. And we're back with Over55andlive.com. Thank you for tuning in. We are speaking with Dr. Jeff Schmid from the Conservancy, Southwest Florida. He is talking about the Kemp Ridley sea turtle and his research and actually how he brought him back from extinction. Hey, Jeff, could you kind of fill us in? How did people get interested in other words, how did you get interested in sea turtles?
Well, I grew up, I'm a Florida native, and I've grown up along the coast, so I've always been a water person. But it wasn't until I graduated from college and I came back home to Panama City that I got a job at a fisheries lab that was down the road, and that's when I started off on my career as a turtle biologist, if you will. And then that was with the federal government, National Marine Fisheries Service, and worked with them for a few years, and my mentor put me on the track for graduate school, and I spent another several years pursuing that and working, and Now I've moved over to Southwest Coast because it's so the beauty down here, the natural beauty, is what brought me, particularly 10,000 Islands, and this is a great area to live and also a good spot for the research too.
Can I ask? We talked about bringing how you helped the Kemp's Ridley come back from the brink of extinction, 700 nests. What was the process? What did you guys? I don't mean to get into the extension, but
could be a long answer. Yes.
Can you kind of give us some highlights of what caused them to be able to come back to 20,000 nests?
Sure. Well, I can't take the credit for it. I mean, I provided information that's been useful in managing, but
but it's a team. It's a team effort.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. But that big population decline was attributed to two factors. One was the collection of eggs at the nesting beach. These turtles are unique in that they nest during the daytime hours, so they're easily observable, and they come ashore in big aggregations. They're called arribadas, or arrivals, and they come ashore and a bunch of females lay their eggs and they leave. So that made them very susceptible to over-harvesting. And that was ended in the 70s. They began protecting the nesting beach. But the other side of the coin was the accidental drowning in shrimp trawls. Shrimp trawls, it's a net. It's like a big sock or sack that's drugged through the water, and it's not selective. It catches whatever can't get out of the way, and fortunately sea turtles are one of those things, and these nets are typically, they can be drugged for hours at end, so the turtle can't get up to breathe, and they would accidentally drown. So then in the 1990s there was legislation passed requiring first the U.S. fleet and then the Mexican fleet, shrimp boat fleets, to pull turtle excluder devices in their nets. And it was after both of these measures were enacted that we started seeing the uptick in nesting numbers at the beach. So,
that's fantastic. So one of the things I always like to mention when we talk to people from the Conservancy is that I want to let the audience know your membership to the Southwest Conservancy of Southwest Florida is what aids Dr. Schmid and others doing great work out there at Conservancy to continue their great work. So if you have a chance, go to our website. You can click on the Conservancy of Southwest Florida, and by the way, on the bottom you will also know, right next to that picture, you will notice that we have a link to the Kemp's Ridley sea turtle research that Dr. Schmidt's doing. Really interesting. It also gives the track turtle movements in there, and the seaturtle.org site is also
wonderful.
linked in there.
Great.
So all that will be linked together. But the most important thing that we want to get across to you today is, if you're not a member of the Southwest Conservancy of Southwest Florida, go visit them. They're on Goodlet Frank Road,
right
next to the zoo. I just went south on the end.
Yeah, right.
Been there many, many times, and I still forget it. But anyway, go by there. If you can't go by, link on their website. Become a member. Become a supporting member, because the legislation they passed, the way they help save animals, they have a hospital, the Van Arks Hospital, I should say, that saves wildlife throughout Southwest Florida. They support the Kemp's Ridley sea turtle research. They do so much work, and they really not desperately, but they do need your support. They're very well funded, but they need more. The more they get, the better off we can be, because we can save ourselves in Southwest Florida. Let's get back to the sea turtles for a second. Now the process, what the migration patterns that I saw there on the track the turtles' movements, how is that significant?
Well, we've seen some different patterns with Kemp's Ridleys than, say, the loggerheads. The loggerheads will come in the female's nest. That's when they put the transmitters on them, and then when they're done nesting, they go back to their feeding areas, which can be several hundred miles away, and then they feed and get ready for the next nesting season when they come back. But the Ridleys are here more or less, most of the time. They're not. The loggerheads are a seasonal resident, whereas the loggerheads are the seasonal. The Ridleys are the full-time residents, feeding in our bays and estuaries. And their movements are more dictated by the environmental factors that may come into play. Like this year, we had a couple cool downs, more so than the previous couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
And the turtles responded by moving out offshore or to the south, looking for warmer water because they are cold-blooded. They regulate body temperature by moving to warmer water. And then as soon as it warmed back up, the turtles came right back to where they had been feeding previously. And a couple years ago, we did a similar study up in Charlotte Harbor, and that coincided with back-to-back red tide blooms.
Oh.
And we noticed a difference in turtle movements between one year and the next, and we were able to correlate the difference in movements with the differences in red tide conditions.
How interesting.
The first year, the bloom stayed offshore and didn't come into the bays and estuaries, so the turtle stayed in the bays and estuaries, made little forays out, but came right back in. The next year, the bloom was offshore as well, but moved inshore into the bays and estuaries, and the turtles responded by getting the heck out of there and trying to find areas of that weren't being as impacted. So it shows that the turtles can detect red tide for one, and that they also seem to be exhibiting a avoidance behavior.
Doctor, this is Bill Pembleton. I have a question for you. We were down on Keyway. We took the boat on the weekend, the southern tip, where it's cordoned off, I think, for the migratory birds. Mm-hmm. And we saw a turtle. I know it was a loggerhead. It was a turtle's maybe like a foot or so. My daughter, Holly, who's 13 years old, she sees a turtle in that cordoned off area, and she certainly wants to pick the turtle up and help him and take him towards the water. If we see a turtle like that, we're supposed to just leave them alone, correct? He or she, the turtle, knows what they're doing. Am I right?
That's correct. Sea turtles are protected under federal law, so
Okay.
it's a federal offense to harass them, and harassing includes a number of different activities. But yeah, it's best just to leave them be. And if you saw a turtle up in the nesting bird area, that may not have been a sea turtle. That may have been a gopher tortoise, which is a land-dwelling
And they're protected
turtle.
also, right?
They're protected in the state. They're listed as threatened in the state. So yeah, certainly the same conditions apply. It's best just to observe them at a distance and marvel at the wonderment of the turtles.
There you
And that's
go.
exactly what we
Yeah,
do.
yeah.
Dr. Kemp, I'm sorry, I'm talking Kemp's Ridley. I'm seeing the name. Dr. Schmid, is it okay if I change your name to Dr.
Stay
Kemp
with
here?
Jeff. That might be easier for you. That's only 4 letters for doctor.
Jeff, I appreciate you being on. That's all the time we have today, but I'd so appreciate your efforts and what you're doing and helping to bring the Kemp's Ridley back from the edge of extinction. I know it's a team effort, but I know that you were one of the leading members of that team. Again, we were talking to Dr. Jeff Schmid with the Conservancy of Southwest Florida. I did it. At that time I did it right. I really appreciate you being on. If you wouldn't mind, can we have you on again maybe later on in the year and talk about this a little further?
Yeah, you bet. I'm always available. I can talk turtles whenever you want.
There you go.
Jeff, I appreciate you very much. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. That was Dr. Jeff Schmid with the Conservancy of Southwest Florida. You can contact the Conservancy at 239-262-0304 or go by and see them off of Goodlet Frank Road at 1495 Smith Preserve Way. They're open from Monday through Sunday, 9:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. They're worth your time, they're worth your effort, and they certainly are worth your contributions.